What's up everyone, welcome back. Today we're going to do a slightly different kind of video. We're going to do my thoughts and processes on building a historic Brawl deck. Some of you have asked about how to build one. You just either A, never built one, or you've gone online and copied someone else's deck, but you've never tried to brew your own. So I'm going to try to make a video where I show how I build a deck from scratch and what I think about when I'm building a deck. So let's hop right into it. So we'll just start a new deck. I'm gonna use I think I'm gonna use Ashaya because I wanted to build this deck anyway. Ashaya, am I spelling it wrong? Soul. I think I'm thinking of. I can picture the card, but I can't. I'm obviously not spelling it right. Creature. Let's just look up all my mono green legendaries. Huh. Maybe I need to select a format. Oh yeah, I spelled it right. Ashaya. Weird. I don't know why it wasn't showing up. Anyway, okay. So obviously, pick your commander. Set the deck as a historic Brawl deck. And I'm just going to label this Ashaya Historic Brawl. And then get it in there. I've noticed some weird things that happen if you don't select the right format. Especially if you download the deck from the internet. Sometimes the format is wrong, even though all the cards are in there. It'll be like a... what's it called? Like a limited deck or a friendly Brawl deck. But that's not what you want. You want a historic Brawl deck. While we're here, we can pick sleeves. So why not? We'll go with these sick metal sleeves for the mono green color. Yeah. Oops. Gotta save it. Yep. Okay. So the very first thing I do when I build a deck is I consider how many lands I'm going to need. My base number for Commander and Historic Brawl, the 110 Singleton decks, is 40. Now you can go below that for certain types of decks, or you can go higher than that for others. I'll give two examples. If you're building a really low mana curve aggro deck, then you probably don't need 40 lands. You could probably get away with like 35, and then that's 5 extra slots for cards that you could fit in. If you're building a landfall deck, like Omnath, or there might be some landfall elements in this deck, we may want to go a little higher than 40 because our deck, can benefit from lands. Now, Ashaya is kind of unique, and I'll read Ashaya if you don't know what Ashaya does in a second, but we could probably just start with 40 and be okay. So let's just click lands right off the bat, and I don't mess around with all the different specialty lands. I just put in I always put in snow lands because there's so many snow synergies on Arena, and I've forgotten to put in snow lands so many times that I just put them in right off the bat. So let's put in 40 snow lands. Now this is also a monocolored deck, so it makes our land decision making process a little easier, but let's just put these in. The reason I start with 40 lands is because, at least for me, when I build decks, I tend to overdo it. I tend to, like if I'm given 100 card slots, I'll put in 120 cards, right? So this is a nice little way for me to save 40 cards of my deck for lands, which is what, on average you should probably have. And now I'm only gonna put in like 60 to 70 cards, and it'll be easier to trim later on. It's much harder to trim if you put in 120 spells and then you're like, oh man, I gotta still fit 40 lands in here, and you actually have to trim like 50 cards. It's way harder to do it that way, I find. So let's just get the lands in there now. We need them no matter what. So let's just put these as a placeholder. So now we can get off lands. Okay, so let's read Ashaya. Ashaya, obviously mono green commander. Ashaya, Soul of the Wild's power and toughness are each equal to the number of lands you control. Pretty straightforward. Non-token creatures you control are forests, lands, in addition to their other types. So, our creatures turn into lands. Ashaya makes our creatures lands. And then Ashaya's power and toughness are each equal to the number of lands we control. This includes our actual lands, like our actual lands on the battlefield, and all of our creatures. So Ashaya can be a huge creature while making all of our creatures lands. So there's some synergies that we can build this deck around. Like Landfall. Now if a creature enters the battlefield, we also get Landfall triggers. So we should think about some good Landfall cards while we're building this deck. But before we do any of that, we need to start with the basics, which is ramp. This is a mono green deck. I mean, most decks need ramp. There's different kinds of ramp. There's land ramp. There's mana rocks. Used, if you don't know what mana rocks means, it's just using artifacts as ramp, as in like Arcane Signet is a good example. It's 2 mana. You can put it in any deck because it's 2 generic, and it taps for 1 mana of any color in your commander's color identity. Not really a good card in this deck because we're mono green. I don't usually put mana rocks in mono green decks because A, they have access to land ramp, and B, I could put a better card in this slot. But if I had a 2 mana or 3 mana or 4 mana or 5 mana commander, then this is almost always an include. And I might be saying a bunch of stuff that you guys already know, but I'm just gonna pretend I'm explaining this video to someone who's brand new to this process, and you can just shelve any information that is redundant. So ramp. So Ashaya, obviously, it's a 5 mana commander, so we want to ramp to get Ashaya out, but also we have the benefit of all of our creatures turning into lands. So let's just start with the basics. That would be mana dorks. So let's see, if I just type the word add, I think that filters them out. Yeah, so we want to include like Elvish Mystic, 1 green mana, add a green mana, and Llanowar Elves, 1 green mana, add a green mana. Things like Utopia Sprawl, you can make this decision. I personally am not going to add this. I would much rather this slot go, if I'm going to add in like a spell to ramp myself, I'd much rather do like Explore, so we can play an additional land and we draw a card. To me, Utopia Sprawl might be better in a different kind of deck, but in this deck, I think we want to encourage putting more lands on the battlefield. So let's add Explore. Druid Class is always a good one. Whenever it has a landfall ability, whenever a land enters the battlefield under your control, you gain 1 life, so life gain's good. But then you can continually pump it up and go to level 2 and level 3. So level 2, we may play an additional land on each of our turns. That's great. And then, 3 more mana, level 3. When this class becomes level 3, target land you control becomes a creature with haste, and this creature's power and toughness are each equal to the number of lands you control. It's still a land, so we kind of get like a second Ashaya, right? And remember, all our creatures are lands, so this is gonna be a huge creature. So this is a great card to have in the deck too. Let's see if there's any other good mana dorks. Gilded Goose, it's a toss-up. I mean, it's good enough. We'll put it in. Bramble's Familiar has been a good card in some other decks I've built. I don't know if we want to be milling ourselves though. You may play an additional land of the this turn. So I'm just looking for like generally good mana dorks. We are going to be playing a lot of creatures, so Long List of the Ants is probably a good card to have in. We'll go over the modal cards later. I do that last. I count these, even though they're spells, I count them as part of the land base, so we won't be putting any modal cards in until the very end. Lotus Cobra, Landfall, Ramp. This is also a modal card, but we'll add that in later. Azusa, great in this deck. You may play 2 additional lands. Yep. This is Leafkin Druid's great because we're gonna have creatures. So it's already a 2 mana add a green, but if we have 4 more creatures, we can add double green. It's also a nice blocker. I think that's gonna do it for mana dorks. I think from here on out we're gonna look for land ramp. Put additional land. Oh, there's one more. There's one more of these types. Where is it? Hold on. Additional land. I know there's one more. Sure. Shigeki is a personal favorite. It just allows us to bring cards back from the graveyard. This is the one I was thinking of. Play with the top card of your library. You may play lands with the top of your library. Whatever land... Yeah, so... Not additional lands, but we get to play lands with the top of our library. So combined with other effects, that's really good. Okay. So you can see... this is already a really good... extra lands and land ramp start, right? And we still have, this is a pretty low mana curve. These are all 1 through 3 mana spells. But this will be a nice foundation for getting to Ashaya and then doing more fun big things to win the game. You gotta start with the foundational stuff in order to do the fun stuff. Once Upon a Time is a great card. If I'm like in the middle, as you can tell, it's a little scattered, but if I'm in the middle of trying to find cards and I see just generally good cards, I'll usually just add them. You can always cut cards later too, so it's better if you think it's going to be somewhat synergistic, you know, just add it and you can always cut it later if it doesn't make the cut. Wrenn and Seven's a good one too. We'll just add that in now. Okay, so now we want to look for land ramp. And then I particularly want the ones that go on the battlefield. A lot of land ramp will put it in your hand. That's not really what we want. We want the spells that put it on the battlefield. This is great in a mono green deck. I think that's it. Maybe Beanstalk Giant because of the adventure side. Okay, so now we have 38 slots left to build out our deck. We have, what is that? So we use 22 of our slots for land or, you know, ramp of some kind. I think that's more than enough. So let's move on to support spells for the deck. So this is where I'm gonna just look up, we'll just filter out creatures. Creature. And obviously there's stuff that I haven't collected yet, but I'm only gonna look at the stuff I've collected because I have a big enough collection. If your collection is small, then you may want to have the other option selected, where it's you can see all cards, and then you'll see cards that you haven't gotten yet. Like Delighted Halfling's a great card, I just don't own it yet, so I'm just gonna ignore it because I can't put it in my deck. A-Haywire Mite's a great card. It's only an uncommon too, so you should be able to crack it. But this is, everyone has the One Ring in their deck now, so this is a great way to exile it, because it is a non-creature artifact. So we'll get that in, that's a type of removal. Grazer is another type of land ramp, so we'll put that in. It's maybe a good card. It comes back, so I think we'll add it. It has the escape clause. Just looking through here, I don't see anything. I'm looking for like generally, whenever another creature you control is battlefield, just powers then Pelt Collector. Yep, this creature will get pretty big pretty quick. And you want to start with the low mana curve side of things, because the lower your mana curve in general, the better your deck is. Gala Greeters is a great card. Destiny Spinner, creature and enchantment spells you control can't be countered. That's a great one. Another exile effect for artifacts and enchantments. It's pretty good. Green doesn't have a lot of removal, or any removal. So we gotta use the removal we have. This is life gain and a ramp on turn 1. Ooze is great for eating the graveyard. Maybe I should try this card out. I haven't tried it yet. It's a mana dork with reach that... Yeah, that's just really good, right? Because it can gain death touch. That's a great blocker. Can block basically anything and kill it. Okay, well, we're getting to the last little bits here, so we want our deck to be a little bit more focused on like landfall and things like that. And we want to put in our powerful spells. Old Growth Troll's good. Oh, there it is. Scoot Swarm. Great Landfall. This ramps us with Landfall. Stomper ramps us. Okay. So before I get too far ahead of myself, let's just type in Landfall. Make sure we got all the good Landfall stuff. We don't really care about proliferating. We're not doing a counter strategy. We'll add this later because it's a modal card, but we will add that. Yes, because this card will get huge with all our creatures entering. Sporemon will make us 1/1s, which will also act as lands. So we'll get double triggers off that. Is that infinite if I have this and Ashaya?
A fraction of a raindrop. 3 grains of salt. At up to 100 times more potent than more.
Interesting. That might go infinite.
Fentanyl is all it takes to cause an overdose. Fentanyl can be mixed into heroin, cocaine, pressed pills, meth, and other drugs. It could be in your drug.
Yeah. Shout out to Lo-Fi Geek for great lo-fi music. Now. Okay. Necropot gains us life, but we kind of already have that in the deck, right? I mean, gaining life is never a bad thing, so let's just add. It's also a butt. Because okay, so you just have to think of what I mean by butt is it has 3 toughness. As a butt. You have to, with this deck, you have to think about, like, even if the creatures are kind of meh, you have to add in the claws and taps for mana. So, like, now this is a 2 mana 1/3 with landfall, gain a life, but also taps for mana because of Ashaya. So, I think it's good. And, you know, having a low mana cost is good. It means we can play more of these quote-unquote creature lands. Okay, so we got all of our landfall stuff. So now let's just put in bangers. Oops, let's go to the search function. Let's get rid of creature. Let's do mythic and rare. And press OK. And let's just look through the mythics and rares. See if there's anything, like inscription would be good in this deck. It's a versatile card, so we can use it in a number of different situations. Heroic Intervention's good. Keep our stuff alive. We do need some card draw. So I'll have to add in tribute. Where is Garrick's Uprising? Did I pass it? G? It must be an uncommon. Okay, we'll not forget Garrick's Uprising. Yeah. You may play lands from your graveyard. Yep. Cast spells from our graveyard's pretty good. Because Chariot's really nice. We're not like specifically a token making deck, so I don't know if we add in Parallel Lives. Questing Beast is great. Oh my god, look at that novel of text. Yeah, I remember this card. This is good. Good in a creature deck. Elder Gargaroth is always a good one. Also card draw. Yep. 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 Okay, so we're getting down to the dregs. Again, it's okay to go over 100. We'll go back and we'll trim. Alright. Well, we're 2 over right now. One ring. Solemn. Ugin's good. Gotta put Ulamog in. Maybe Immortal Sun? We only have a couple Planeswalkers. I mean... we could definitely cut some cards by adding the Immortal Sun and removing our Planeswalkers, but... is that the way we want to go? I love Planeswalkers, but it doesn't... these Planeswalkers don't really help with Ashaya, except Nissa makes creatures. Ugin makes creatures. Nissa technically makes creatures. Wrenn and Seven makes creatures. So yeah, they're all synergistic, so we won't include this. Plus our deck is going to have so many creatures, it's going to be easy to tack down Planeswalkers, so we shouldn't need this in order to get rid of Planeswalkers. Alright, I can't think of anything else. Just gonna take a quick look back through. Yeah. Flying Death Toucher is pretty good. Gigasaurus. Or Giganosaurus, sorry. That's a 5 mana 10/10. We should have trample though. Okay. I think that's gonna do. Oh, Toski. Yeah, that would have been a big miss. Okay. Alright, and then Abundant Harvest, choose land or on land. Yeah, that's a good card. Just trying to think if I missed anything else. Blizzard Brawl's good. And we have the Snowlands in. Yep. Okay. I think we got it. So we need to cut 13 cards. I definitely want to keep Ulamog. I always start with the top end when I look for stuff to cut, because the support cards in general are always going to be valuable. The end game stuff, obviously it ends the game, but you have to build to it. So you don't want to cut those. You don't want to cut your foundational cards first. So you just got to choose. Galta and Ulamog I want to keep. Great Henge I want to keep. Endray's Forerunners. I don't own the better version of this. What is it called? Crater Hoof. I don't own it yet. So this is like a Crater Hoof Light. So definitely keep that. Thorn Mammoth might be cuttable. It's a good card, but for 7 mana, I just don't know. This makes our mana huge, but we kind of don't need that, right? Because all of our creatures are mana, so we can cut Nyx Bloom. We might cut this Nissa. Beanstalk Giant. No. This is really good against... This is really good A for our planeswalkers, but B really good hate for opposing creatures, or opposing... what am I trying to say? Opponents' planeswalkers, that's what I'm trying to say. So, definitely keep you. And it's a 6/6 haster. Green Warden. We double our landfall triggers, and we can get stuff out of the graveyard, but... I mean, it's really good, but our deck isn't like super landfall centric. It's not like we're playing Omnath. It's just like a... It's like a little... addition, so I think we could probably get rid of this one. The cost is too steep. Don't want to get rid of Wrenn. This Foreign Clicks is good. Well, they're both good, but I want to keep this one too. Unnatural Growth. Yep. Yep. Great card. Yeah, so now we're getting into like the mid-range, like the 5 and 4 mana slots. And I don't think there's really anything in here I want to cut. These are all really good cards. Maybe Garruk. I mean, it gives one of our creatures trample, which is something we don't have a lot of. And it's 4 mana. We'll keep it. Chariot's awesome. Could probably cut this. It's kind of idealistic. If we're attacking a lot, Opponent may never get to 3 creatures if they're blocking a bunch. This is a great card. This is good against control decks. Yep. Yeah. I think we have enough other forms of removal. Probably get rid of that. You probably don't need Cultivate, honestly. We have a lot of creature, like mana dorks and stuff. Could probably cut this. We have other ways of gaining life. Versatile. Probably get rid of you. We're not really a +1/+1 strategy deck. We could get rid of Gilded Goose because we added Kami. I think that's a better card for us in this deck. Okay, we're down to 5 cards that we gotta cut. Let's take a break from cutting and let's go to the land section. So we'll just click this land section here. Now it shows all of our lands that we can add, right? So this is the way I do it. You could do it your own way, but it's the way I do it. I just go land by land and say yes or no. So Castle Garenbrig, yes. It's ramp for us, right? We have a bunch of creatures. So adding mana for creatures is good. So yes, which means we need to take out a basic land, right? We added a specialty land, take out a basic. I will say yes, because we don't have a lot of card draw on mono green, so this cycling this land could be a way to draw a card. So same thing. I'd say yes, because we're going to make a lot of mana. So paying this cost is not bad at all. It's also a forest, so it works with Nissa. Nah, we don't really care about this, so no. We don't really care about that. This would be nice, so take that out. We don't really care about the plant token. Layer the Hydra is good. Take that out. We don't want to sack a land to draw a card. That's not typically good. In certain decks, you like get triggers off sacrificing permanents, so it would be good in that kind of deck, but not in this deck. Same idea as this land. We can cycle it. This turns into a land, but I don't think that's applicable. Put a +1/+1 counter on target creature. Okay, so modal cards. we add it, right, and it's going to appear up there, but then we have to take out a land because I count them as lands. Same thing with Tanglefloor Hedron. It's a mana dork. So we'll take out a land, which means since we're adding a mana dork, a 2-mana mana dork, we could probably get rid of a 2-mana mana dork. If we have any. Like Leafkin Druid. Yeah, bite. The reason being is that the same mana cost slot, and they do kind of the same thing. Leafkin adds more mana, but it's like, it's not really going to matter in this deck. At that point, we already have so much mana. Bala Ged Recovery is a great one. Move a land. This has a landfall ability. Move a land. What is this? Yep, fight spell. Take out a land. Turn Timber. Take out a land. So you can see we just added a bunch of spells in the deck. We just added 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 spells. But they also have the ability to be lands. So to me, these count as lands first and spells second. And so on the early turns, they'll come down as lands. On the late turns, they'll be spells. But they take land slots, if that makes sense. Now we can go into our utility lands that generally tap for colorless. Cavern of Souls. We're not a tribal deck, but we can use it on our commander. So it's always good in a creature deck to have Cavern of Souls. Crawling Barrens can be a really nasty creature that we can pump endlessly. You need at least one like Demolition Field style land in any Historic Brawl deck because there's just so many specialty lands. Fabled Passage will allow us to get a second landfall trigger. Faceless Haven can be an additional blocker. We can protect our commander with this one. Every monocolor deck needs Nykthos. If you don't know what Nykthos does, it... I mean, I'll let you just read it, but it adds a ton of extra mana. We normally add in Reliquary Tower, but this deck probably doesn't need it. We're going to be dumping out our hand as much as possible. It's debatable whether you want to add in stuff like Riveteer's Outlook. It is going to be an extra landfall trigger at the cost of having a tap land. So I'll think about those for a second. I'd much rather have like Shire Terrace, which comes down, taps for a colorless. So in a bind it can be a land, but we can also sack it to get a landfall trigger down the road. Let's add in Field of Ruin as well. Doesn't hurt to have 2 ways to destroy the opponent's lands. That's really all I can think of. Okay, so that's our mana base. Wait, how did we go up? shoot, did I click it wrong? Yeah, I clicked it wrong. Okay. Well, I remember we had... Huh? It's still saying 110. Oh, weird. What? I don't know why it's doing that. It added 5 forests for some random reason. Strange. Okay, yeah, so we're back at... We had 5 cards we needed to cut. Okay. So hold on. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So that's 30. 31. 32. 33. 34. 35. But then we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 of these. So that would put us at... Yeah, so we have 4 cards we need to cut. Okay. Oh, and we also need to add in Garrick's Uprising. So we have 5 cards we need to cut. So this is where it gets hard. You kind of sometimes have to make tough choices. Drink some tea, my throat's killing me. Gotta make some tough choices. So let's look at our curve. We have a lot of 3 mana spells. Maybe we could find a couple 3 mana spells that we can cut. Yeah, I don't know. I like all those cards. I think we're going to cut Thorn Mammoth. You have to remember too, this can come down on 5. So it's not a 7 mana spell necessarily. It can be as cheap as a 5 mana spell. Is Solemn really necessary in this deck? I mean, it's such a good card. Yeah, we'll keep it. We'll keep it. We'll keep it. It's card draw. Don't want to get rid of card draw. Invasion of Zendikar is probably unnecessary. We don't really need a 4-mana land ramp card. And the backside's not particularly great. Or it's not particularly synergistic with this deck. I think we can get rid of the Garrick too. Let's get rid of one like mana dorky type thing. Maybe we get rid of Explore. Nah, it's just card draw. Don't get rid of card draw. Card draw is so hard to get in mono green. Okay, so here's my thought process. There's nothing really else I want to cut. I'm going over it, double checking. I think I can probably cut 2 lands. And normally I wouldn't do this in a mono green deck, but the reason I'm thinking that is look at our mana curve for 1 and 2 mana spells. It's 26 of our cards. So like 1/4 of our deck is 1 and 2 mana spells, and most of those 1 and 2 mana spells are ramp. Not all of them, but most of them. So we could probably get rid of 2 lands, have 38 total lands, and be just fine. Okay, so yeah. That's the rough deck. What I'll usually do is then go and play it and see how it feels, and if it feels clunky in a particular way, then I'll edit it and tweak it. You know, obviously, just because you get into a match and you lose, that's not necessarily the indicator whether the deck's working or not. You know, what you want to see is your engine working. Like, are we able to curve out? Do we get hands where we have like a lot of these 1 and 2 mana spells plus some type of support piece, and then maybe a big threat, and we're able to get out Ashaya, you know, on turn, you know, 3, 4, like 1 or 2 turns early, and start making a ton of mana, and then play our big threats. Like, is that happening? If you lose the game, that doesn't necessarily mean the deck's not working, right? Sometimes you just run into opponents that are, you know, their deck is a better matchup against your deck than your deck is against theirs. But you want to play test it and see if your actual strategy is unfolding in front of you. If the strategy is unfolding in front of you, then you're probably fine. And maybe you just add in or tweak a card or 2. If you get into a game and it's like completely not working for whatever reason, then yeah, come on back and go to the drawing board. But that's a basic rough draft of how I think about and build historic Brawl decks. You know, just a short recap. Obviously start with the commander, add in your 40 lands, pick your support and foundational pieces. Usually that includes ramp and things of that sort. Then once that's all sorted away, you can add in your, you know, 3, 4, 5 mana pieces that are maybe like, you know, bits of explosive card draw, or, you know, ways to pump your whole squad, you know, ways to prevent damage from being stopped, whatever it is. And then the last thing you should do is add in your haymakers. A lot of people do this the opposite way. They add in their haymakers and they end up with like 30 haymakers, and then they don't have enough room for all their support pieces. But in a deck this big, you have to think of it as like at least half your deck should be support pieces, because you need the support pieces in order to play your haymakers. If you have too many haymakers, it's not going to work. So yeah, I'll keep the deck the way it is, and I'll do a video some point in the future on it like this, and we'll see how our deck building did. Thanks for watching, really appreciate it. If you like this sort of content, hit that subscribe button. Coming out with a new video every day. Drop a like, leave a comment. Did I make sense? Did I not make sense? Let me know in the comments down below. If you have any questions, also ask me down there. Thanks for watching, I appreciate it. See you guys in the next one. Later.